The Harlem sunset bled through the cracked window of the Jackson family's third-floor apartment, casting amber streaks across Maya Jackson's canvas. At 29, her deep brown skin glowed under the fading light as she blended ochre and sienna, each stroke a desperate attempt to capture the resilience of her community. Her latest painting, a vibrant mural of neighbors laughing on stoops, children chasing dreams despite crumbling sidewalks, felt like a prayer for better days. But the foreclosure notice pinned to her easel told a different story. $40 million owed to Pierce Enterprises, the price of a failed community center project that had shattered her family's construction business 6 months ago. Maya's hands, calloused from years of wielding brushes, trembled as she mixed pigments. She was no stranger to struggle. Growing up in Harlem, she'd lost her mother at 14 to a treatable illness the local clinic couldn't afford to manage. That loss fueled her art, her fight to keep the community center alive. A dream her father, Roland, 62, had poured his life into. The center was meant to be a haven, art classes, job training, and a place where kids like Maya could find hope. However, a shady partner's embezzlement had left them liable for the entire contract, and now the bank demanded their home within 72 hours. The doorbell chimed at 6:47 p.m., its sharp note cutting through the apartment's heavy silence. Maya set down her brush, wiping paint from her fingers onto her worn jeans. Her father's voice, hoarse from stress, called from the foyer. "Maya, please come down. Someone's here to see you." She glanced at the canvas, her heart sinking. Whoever this was, it couldn't be good. Downstairs, Nathaniel Pierce stood in their modest living room, as out of place as a skyscraper in a community garden. At 38, his pale skin contrasted sharply with his tailored charcoal suit, which hugged his tall, lean frame. His piercing blue eyes scanned the room with calculated precision, taking in the faded couch, the family photos, and the stack of unpaid bills on the coffee table. His dark blonde hair was neatly styled, but a faint tension in his jaw betrayed a man who carried his burdens. Outside, a sleek black Audi R8 idled its polished frame, glinting next to their rusty mailbox, a symbol of the chasm between their worlds. "Maya Jackson," he said, his voice smooth, yet commanding like velvet over steel. "I'm Nathaniel Pierce, CEO of Pierce Enterprises." At 29, Maya knew his name from headlines, the white American billionaire who'd built a pharmaceutical empire from scratch, controlling life-saving drugs across 3 continents. Forbes pegged his net worth at $10 billion. Standing before him in paint-splattered clothes, she felt exposed like a mural under harsh gallery lights. "I know who you are," she replied, lifting her chin. Her dark eyes, sharp with defiance, met his. "You're here to evict us." A flicker crossed Nathaniel's face. Surprise, perhaps, or something softer. "I'm here to offer an alternative." Roland shifted nervously by the window, his graying hair and weary posture a testament to months of sleepless nights. "Maya, Mr. Pierce has a proposition." Nathaniel's gaze held hers unwavering. "Your family's company was contracted to build a community center for my firm. Your partner's embezzlement of $2 million collapsed the project, leaving you liable for $40 million plus interest and penalties." Each word landed like a hammer, reminding her of Victor Lang, her father's trusted friend, who'd vanished with their future. However, Nathaniel continued, his tone softening. "I'm prepared to forgive the debt under one condition." Maya's pulse quickened. "What condition?" "Marry me for 2 years." The words hung heavy like a storm cloud ready to break. Roland gasped, but Maya's world tilted. This had to be a cruel joke. "You're out of your mind," she whispered. "I'm practical. I have conditions," she said, her voice steady, despite her racing heart. "I keep painting with full studio access and creative freedom. I'm not your trophy at corporate events unless I choose to be, And when the 2 years end, we walk away clean. Agreed. Nathaniel produced a contract, its pages crisp and heavy. My lawyers drafted it. Please review it carefully. Maya scanned the document, surprised by its fairness. Her interests were protected, almost as if he'd anticipated her demands. He handed her a sleek pen, its weight grounding her trembling fingers. As she signed, Nathaniel's voice softened. One more thing, Miss Jackson. For the next 2 years, you're part of my world. I protect what's mine from others and myself. The promise sent a chill and a spark of curiosity down her spine. Was this billionaire, sculpted by wealth and control, more human than he let on? She signed her name, Maya Jackson, binding herself to a man she'd known for 20 minutes. Welcome to the family, Mrs. Pierce. Nathaniel said, his mask slipping to reveal a man who might be as trapped as she was. Thunder rumbled outside, and Maya wondered if she'd saved her family or stepped into a storm far more dangerous than debt. Hey, what do you think of Maya's choice? Drop a comment below with your thoughts. Would you sign that contract? If this bargain grips you, give a like to keep the story going and subscribe for the next chapter of Maya and Nathaniel's journey. 3 weeks after signing the marriage contract, Maya Jackson stood in the bridal suite of the Pierce estate, her silk gown shimmering under the soft glow of a crystal chandelier. The dress, a custom creation with a flowing train, hugged her frame, its delicate embroidery a nod to her Harlem roots patterns, inspired by the vibrant murals she'd painted as a teen. She stared into the mirror, feeling less like a bride and more like a chess piece moved across a billionaire's board. The estate's rose garden, visible through floor-to-ceiling windows, buzzed with preparations for what the media had dubbed the wedding of the decade. 200 guests, a string quartet playing Pachelbel's canon, and rows of white roses created a spectacle that felt worlds away from her family's modest apartment. Keisha, her best friend since art school, adjusted the gown's train, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "You don't have to do this, Maya," she whispered, her voice tight. "My car's out back. We could be halfway to Jersey by dusk." Maya caught Keisha's hand, squeezing gently. "You know I can't run. This is for Dad, the community center, and all of us." Keisha sighed but nodded, understanding the weight of Maya's choice. A soft knock interrupted them. Nathaniel's assistant, Thorne Whitaker, peered in his tailored suit, as impeccable as his manners. "Mrs. Pierce, it's time." The name felt foreign, like a borrowed coat that didn't fit. Maya took a breath, steadying herself. Judge Harlan, a silver-haired friend of the Pierce family, officiated with traditional vows that felt hollow given their arrangement. Nathaniel's voice, when he spoke, carried a quiet intensity. "I, Nathaniel Pierce, take you, Maya Jackson, to be my wife. I promise to protect you, provide for you, and honor our commitment." The word commitment resonated less like a contract clause and more like a vow carved in stone. Maya's turn came, her voice steady, despite the tremor in her chest. "Maya Jackson, I take you, Nathaniel Pierce, as my husband. I promise to stand beside you, respect our agreement, and—" She paused, then added softly, "See the man behind the mask." A flicker of surprise crossed Nathaniel's face, quickly hidden. When Judge Harlan pronounced them husband and wife, Nathaniel cupped her face gently, his touch warm against her skin. Their first kiss was brief, calculated for the cameras, yet his thumb lingered on her cheekbone, tracing a path that felt too intimate for a business deal. The crowd applauded, oblivious to the truth behind their union. The reception was a whirlwind of champagne toasts and insincere congratulations. Nathaniel played the attentive groom, his hand resting lightly on Maya's back, and his responses to guests were smooth and charming. But she noticed the tension in his posture when talk turned to love or legacy, his smile never reaching his eyes. Beatrice Langston, a pharmaceutical heiress, gushed. It was such a romantic story. Nathaniel said your art stole his heart. Maya nearly choked on her drink. Nathaniel's fabricated tale of love at first sight was news to her. His hand tightened briefly on her waist, a silent warning to play along. Maya's talent is extraordinary, he said smoothly. I'm building her a studio at the estate. The word talent carried a weight that made her pulse quicken. Did he mean it, or was it just part of the act? As the evening wore on, Maya caught glimpses of Nathaniel's discomfort, sipping sparkling water. Instead of wine, his answers growing clipped when guests pried into personal matters. Finally, the last guest departed, leaving them alone in the estate's grand foyer. The silence was heavy, charged with unspoken questions. Nathaniel loosened his bow tie, the gesture oddly vulnerable. Your suite is in the east wing, he said quietly. Thorne will guide you. Everything you need is there. Clothes, toiletries, art supplies. Ask the staff for anything else. Maya hesitated, then asked, Where will you be? The question slipped out unbidden. West Wing, he replied, his tone businesslike, but laced with something softer, relief perhaps, or regret. We'll only cross paths in common areas. Thorne led her through corridors lined with abstract sculptures, the estate's understated elegance, a far cry from Harlem's vibrant chaos. Her suite was breathtaking, warm-toned walls, a plush sofa, and windows overlooking a private lake that shimmered under moonlight. Thorne said, Your studio is through here, opening double doors to reveal a space that stole her breath. Northern light poured through tall windows, illuminating easels, shelves of pigments, and brushes organized with precision. It was an artist's sanctuary designed by someone who understood her craft. How did he know? Maya whispered, running her fingers over a set of Kolinsky sable brushes. Mr. Pierce researches thoroughly, Thorne replied diplomatically. Anything else, Mrs. Pierce? She shook her head, still processing the space. Alone, she explored her suite, a closet filled with clothes, in her size a bathroom with a sleek marble shower. But the bedroom drew her attention, a king-sized bed with silk sheets, a single white rose on the pillow. The gesture felt both thoughtful and ironic, given their arrangement. Maya changed into soft pajamas, then stood by the window, gazing at the estate's grounds. Nathaniel was likely staring out his window, somewhere in the West Wing, grappling with the same strange reality. Her phone chimed with a text from an unknown number. I hope the studio suits you. Sleep well, Mrs. Pierce. NP. She stared at the message, her fingers hovering over the keyboard before typing, Thank you. It's perfect. His reply came instantly. You're welcome. Tomorrow we start navigating this. She climbed into bed, the silk sheets cool against her skin. As she drifted toward sleep, Maya's thoughts lingered not on the contract or the money, but on that fleeting moment during their vows when Nathaniel's mask had slipped, revealing a man who might be as lost in this marriage as she was. Outside, the lake reflected the stars, and she wondered if 2 years would be enough to uncover who Nathaniel Pierce was, or if she'd find herself lost in his world instead. A week after the wedding, Maya awoke at dawn, unable to sleep in the vast silence of the Pierce estate's east wing. She wandered to her studio, the northern light filtering through tall windows, casting a soft glow on her unfinished canvas, a swirling mix of Harlem's bold colors and the quiet grief she'd carried since her mother's death. Painting had always been her refuge, a way to process loss and hope. She'd start with a base layer of muted grays, then build vibrant hues, letting each stroke tell a story of resilience. Today, though, her hands hesitated, the weight of her new life pressing against her creativity. She found a gift on her easel, a set of Kolinsky sable brushes, their ebony handles carved with subtle floral patterns, each bristle perfect for capturing delicate details. A note in Nathaniel's precise handwriting read, "For capturing resilience." The gesture stirred something in her chest. Surprise, curiosity, a flicker of warmth. These weren't random supplies. They were chosen for her style, her need for precision in fine lines and bold textures. How had he known? Over the next few days, more gifts appeared. On Tuesday, a box of rare pigments arrived, ultramarine, from crushed lapis lazuli vermilion, glowing like embers colors she'd only dreamed of using, sourced from a centuries-old Italian supplier. Wednesday brought a stack of first-edition art books, their pages filled with essays on trauma and healing through creative expression. Maya traced the titles, her fingers lingering on a volume about community art as resistance. It was as if Nathaniel had peered into her soul, seeing the artist who painted to honor her mother's memory and her neighborhood's strength. Thursday's gift stopped her cold. A leather-bound journal sat on her studio chair, its pages photocopies of an older diary written in elegant feminine script. The first entry, dated October 15, 1984, began. Nathaniel painted today, his small hands so careful with real brushes. At 5, he sees colors I never could. He says he's painting happy things to make the sadness in my eyes go away. The writer was Clara, Nathaniel's mother. Maya read on, her throat tightening. Clara chronicled her son's budding talent, his sensitivity, and his attempts to heal her pain through art. A November entry read, "He paints by moonlight, saying sadness makes better art. I told him art should bring joy, but his eyes too old for a child. Said, how can you paint light without knowing dark?" The final entry, dated December 20th, 1984, broke her heart. "Tomorrow I must leave. Victor's ultimatum is clear. My presence endangers Nathaniel. He'll hate me for abandoning him, but love demands cruel sacrifices. I leave my brushes for him, hoping they speak what I cannot." Maya closed the journal, tears blurring her vision. Clara hadn't abandoned her son willingly. She'd been forced out to protect him from Victor Pierce, Nathaniel's grandfather. The gifts, the brushes, pigments, books, suddenly made sense. Nathaniel wasn't just indulging her passion. He was sharing a piece of his own, buried under years of pain. That evening, Maya sought him out, driven by a need to understand the man behind the contract. She found him in his office, a stark glass and steel space, staring at a wall of monitors displaying global pharmaceutical data. His suit was crisp, but his shoulders sagged, his blue eyes unfocused, as if his mind were elsewhere. "Thank you," she said from the doorway, clutching the journal. "The brushes, the paints, the books, your mother's diary." He turned his face briefly, unguarded, revealing a vulnerability that vanished as quickly as it appeared. "For what?" he asked, his voice controlled. "For seeing me," she said. "To know what I'd need to keep painting. And for sharing this." She held up the journal. "Your mother loved you, Nathaniel. She didn't leave by choice." His jaw clenched, a muscle ticking in his temple. "She left. The result's the same." The words were sharp, but Maya saw the tension in his posture, the slight tremor in his hands as he gripped his desk. Years of studying brokenness through her art had taught her to read pain in others, and Nathaniel's ran deep. "She was protecting you," Maya said softly, "from Victor, from whatever he threatened." She stepped closer, her sneakers silent on the polished floor. "When was the last time you painted?" He looked away, his gaze fixed on the monitors. "I was 8. My grandfather said art was a weakness, a distraction from what mattered." His voice was low, laced with old wounds. "I stopped." Maya's chest ached. She knew what it was to lose a piece of yourself. After her mother's death, she'd stopped painting for a year, unable to face the canvas without feeling the void. "You chose those brushes for me," she said. You knew exactly what I'd need. That's not a man who's forgotten how to create. Nathaniel's eyes met hers, a storm of conflict in their blue depths. This isn't about me, Maya. This is about you keeping what's yours. But his tone betrayed him a crack in his carefully built walls. When was the last time you did something just for you? She asked, stepping closer still. Something that wasn't about profit or control. He turned fully to face her, his expression raw. I don't remember. The admission hung between them, a confession that felt heavier than their signed contract. For a moment, she thought he might say more and might let her in. Then his phone buzzed, shattering the silence. He glanced at the screen, his mask sliding back into place. I have to take this board meeting in Tokyo. Nathaniel, wait. But he was already moving, his voice clipped, as he answered the call, retreating behind the billionaire's armor. Maya stood alone in his office, the journal heavy in her hands. She returned to her studio, where the northern light felt like an invitation. Picking up one of the sable brushes, she began to paint, not her usual vibrant murals, but something softer, a study in shadows and light, inspired by the man she'd just glimpsed. Each stroke was deliberate, layering grief and hope, much like the process she'd honed over years of turning pain into art. Maya realized Nathaniel's gifts weren't just about her as she worked. They were a tentative and fragile bridge between two people bound by a contract but searching for something real. Outside, the estate's lake reflected the fading stars, and she wondered if Nathaniel, in his West Wing solitude, was thinking of the boy who once painted to chase away his mother's sadness. 3 months after their wedding, Maya stood in the Apex Gallery, her heart pounding as her paintings hung on stark white walls bathed in perfect light. The modern art cathedral gallery buzzed with anticipation for her first solo exhibition. Her collection, resilient shadows, wove together Harlem's vibrant spirit and the quiet pain she'd glimpsed in Nathaniel. Each canvas was a story, bold strokes of crimson and gold for her community's strength, layered over muted grays to reflect her grief and Nathaniel's guarded heart. Her process, starting with somber bases, then building vivid textures, mirrored her belief that beauty could emerge from brokenness. The centerpiece, unyielding spirit, depicted Nathaniel, his controlled exterior fracturing to reveal a flicker of hope in his blue eyes. She'd painted it late at night, using the sable brushes he'd gifted, each stroke a question about the man she was beginning to know. Vanessa Cole, the gallery's director, adjusted a spotlight, her voice warm with awe. Maya, this work is extraordinary. The emotional depth, the technique, it's like you've captured souls. The collection had sold out within an hour of the preview, a triumph that filled Maya with pride and dread. These paintings bared Nathaniel's vulnerabilities to a world that saw him only as a billionaire. Would he understand or feel betrayed? Thorne appeared at her side, his usual calm tinged with tension. Mrs. Pierce. Mr. Pierce has just arrived from Tokyo. Maya's breath caught. Nathaniel hadn't been told about the exhibition. She'd wanted the paintings to speak for themselves. Now, as guests in black tie attire filled the gallery, pharmaceutical executives, art collectors, society, elites, she felt exposed, her art a window into truths she wasn't sure she had the right to share. Nathaniel entered like a storm, breaking his black tuxedo, sharpening the lines of his tall frame. His eyes swept the room, landing on Maya with an intensity that made her skin prickle. He'd come straight from the airport, his posture rigid from jet lag, but his presence commanded the space. Guests parted as he approached, his expression a mask of control. Maya, he said, his voice low and even. Vanessa's invitation reached me at customs. Congratulations on your exhibition. Nathaniel, I can explain, she began, but a sharp voice cut through the hum of the crowd. "Alexander, darling, you're back. Lauren Holt." Nathaniel's ex-fiancée glided toward them, her ice-blue gown clinging to her model-thin frame, her platinum hair gleaming. Lauren, a pharmaceutical heiress who'd ended their engagement 2 years prior, carried herself with the confidence of old money and older grudges. She said I was praising Maya's talent, her sharp smile, and that she had such insight into the human condition. One might think you've seen Nathaniel at his most unguarded. The implications stung, drawing curious glances from nearby guests. Maya felt the weight of their stares, the whispered speculation about her marriage. Lauren's words were a blade slicing at the facade they'd built. "Art demands observation," Maya replied, her voice steady. "And empathy. Something you might not understand." The crowd hushed, sensing tension. Lauren's laugh was cold, crystalline. How artistic. Though marrying for money does grant intimate access. The accusation landed like a slap, and Nathaniel went still, his silence dangerous. Maya's pulse raced, but she refused to be baited. She gestured to unyielding spirit. "You want to know what I see in Nathaniel? A man who's spent years shielding himself from people like you who think love is a weapon. A man who leaves brushes and books, not because he has to, but because he wants to see me create. A man whose learning might deserve more than a contract." The gallery fell silent, every word ringing clear. His fingers brushed her cheek, sending a shiver down her spine. "I've been thinking of you in Tokyo. Every meeting, every moment. I should have been focused on business. I saw your paintings, heard your voice. It's maddening. Nathaniel, I don't know how to do this." Maya admitted, her voice soft. This wasn't supposed to be real. He cupped her face, his thumbs tracing her cheekbones. "I don't know how to be a husband, Maya. I've spent my life avoiding this. But I want to try with you." The admission hung between them, a fragile promise. Around them the gallery buzzed with conversation, but in their alcove, the world was just them. He leaned down, his lips meeting hers in a hungry, desperate kiss, nothing like the staged kiss at their wedding. Maya melted into him, her hands gripping his tuxedo, as if anchoring herself to this new reality. When they parted, both were breathless. "Take me home," she whispered. Nathaniel's eyes darkened with promise. "Mrs. Pierce, nothing would please me more." As they moved toward the exit, their reflection caught in a darkened window, his arm around her waist, her head tilted toward him. For the first time, they looked like a couple in love, not a contract. But Lauren's parting words echoed in Maya's mind, a warning that their newfound connection might face shadows darker than either could imagine. The morning after the gallery exhibition, Maya woke in Nathaniel's bed, the silk sheets tangled around her, his steady breathing warm against her neck. The memory of their kiss, raw, unguarded, a promise of something real, lingered like the scent of his cedar cologne. But the peace was shattered when Thorne's voice came through the intercom, tense and urgent. "Mr. Pierce, Ms. Holt is at the gate. She insists on seeing you. Says it's about Victor." Nathaniel stiffened his arm, tightening around Maya, before he rose, pulling on a shirt with mechanical precision. "Tell her to wait in my office," he said, his tone cold, a stark contrast to the vulnerability he'd shown hours earlier. Maya touched his arm, sensing the walls rebuilding around him. "What's this about Nathaniel?" He paused, his blue eyes clouded with something she couldn't read. Fear, perhaps, or resignation. "Trust me, Maya. Some truths are better buried." His words carried a warning, but she followed him downstairs, driven by a need to understand the man she was beginning to love. Lauren Holt stood by the window in Nathaniel's office, her ice blue dress replaced by a sharp blazer, her platinum hair pulled tight. She held a manila envelope, her smile sharp as a blade. "You've been busy, Nathaniel," she said, tossing the envelope onto his desk, but not busy enough to hide this. Photos spilled out grainy images of Victor Pierce very much alive in a Cayman Islands compound, dated last month. Financial records showed transfers to an account in his name, tied to offshore pharmaceutical deals. Maya's stomach twisted. Victor Nathaniel's grandfather was supposed to have died in a car accident 15 years ago. Nathaniel's face was a mask, but his hands clenched, betraying his shock. "Where did you get these?" he demanded. "I have sources," Lauren replied, her voice dripping with satisfaction. "Sources who know Victor's been pulling strings and running illegal trials while you play the reformed billionaire. And they're ready to go public unless you cooperate." Nathaniel's voice was deadly quiet. "What do you want?" "You back where you belong," Lauren said. "Divorce. Maya. Marry me as planned. Keep Victor's secrets buried, or I'll expose you as complicit in his crimes trials that killed hundreds in Uganda, covered up with bribes. Your empire reputation. Her future." She glanced at Maya. All gone. Maya's mind raced. Her community had suffered from healthcare disparities, clinics, underfunded drugs, overpriced. The idea that Nathaniel's wealth came from exploitation hit like a betrayal. She stepped forward, her voice steady despite her turmoil. "Tell me about the trials, Nathaniel." He turned to her, his eyes raw with guilt. "When I was 23, after Victor's supposed death, I inherited Pierce Enterprises. I learned some of our early profits came from untested antivirals, experimental drugs rushed to market in African communities. Over 200 died in Uganda alone, their deaths buried with 10 million in bribes. I was young, grieving, and overwhelmed. I looked the other way." His voice cracked. "But for 15 years, I've tried to atone, funding free clinics, affordable drugs research for neglected diseases." Maya's chest tightened. She knew the cost of negligence. Her mother's death from a treatable illness haunted her. Yet Nathaniel's efforts mirrored her fight for Harlem's health center. "You didn't know the full extent," she said, more to herself than him. "But you've been trying to make it right." Lauren laughed, sharp and cruel. "How noble! But the world won't care about your redemption arc when they see these." She tapped the photos. 24 hours. Nathaniel, choose wisely." As Lauren swept out, Maya faced Nathaniel, his shoulders rigid with defeat. "I can't let her destroy you," he said, his voice low. "Not after everything." "You don't get to decide that alone," Maya countered. Her advocacy for her community had taught her to fight against impossible odds. "We face this together." She thought of her paintings and how she layered hope over pain. This was no different, a chance to rebuild, not surrender. Nathaniel hesitated, then nodded. "We need help." He called Marcus Reed, a federal investigator posing as a business rival who arrived within the hour. In the estate's dining room, Marcus spread out files on Victor's crimes, untested drugs, causing organ failure, falsified safety reports, bribes to foreign officials. Marcus said, "Victor's been orchestrating a shadow network," his voice grim. "Lauren is his operative, gathering intel to control you. But we've been building a case. If we can get Victor to incriminate himself, we can end this." Maya's resolve hardened. Her art had always been a weapon against injustice, from murals, protesting gentrification, to portraits of forgotten voices. "I'm in," she said, meeting Nathaniel's gaze. "But we do this my way too. No secrets." Nathaniel's eyes softened, a flicker of gratitude breaking through his guilt. "No secrets," he agreed. They spent hours strategizing with Marcus, planning to wear wires at a meeting with Victor. Maya sketched as they talked, her pencil tracing bold lines, a visual reminder of her strength. Nathaniel watched, his expression a mix of awe and fear. "You're risking everything," he said quietly. "So are you," she replied, setting down her pencil. but I've fought for my community my whole life. This is just a bigger canvas." As night fell, the estate's silence felt charged with purpose. Maya and Nathaniel stood on the edge of a war, their marriage no longer just a contract, but a partnership forged in truth, ready to face the shadows of Victor's legacy. In the quiet of her studio, Maya stood before a blank canvas, the northern light casting a soft glow across her workspace. The revelations about Victor Pierce's crimes, untested antivirals killing over 200 in Uganda, buried with bribes burned in her mind, fueling a restless energy. She dipped a sable brush into vermilion, the pigment vibrant against the gray base she'd laid down. Her process was deliberate. Start with muted tones to ground the pain, then layer bold colors to reclaim hope. This painting reclamation was her response to the shadows threatening her new life with Nathaniel. Each stroke wove together Harlem's resilience stoops, alive with laughter, kids dreaming despite odds, and Nathaniel's quiet fight for redemption. His clinics and affordable drugs, a counterpoint to his grandfather's greed. Maya's art had always been her voice. After her mother's death, she'd painted murals across Harlem, turning cracked walls into stories of survival. The community center, her father's dream, was meant to be her legacy, a place for kids to create to heal. Victor's empire, built on exploitation, was the opposite, a betrayal of everything she fought for. She blended ochre into the canvas and saw her mother's face lost to a system that valued profit over lives. This painting wasn't just art, it was a battle cry, a promise to expose Victor's crimes. Nathaniel entered quietly, his presence a steady warmth in the room. He'd been distant since Lauren's threat, buried in strategy with Marcus Reed, but now his blue eyes softened as he watched her work. "You paint like you're fighting," he said, his voice low. "Every stroke feels alive." Maya set down her brush, meeting his gaze. "It's how I've always survived. When Mom died, painting was the only way I could keep her with me. This," she gestured to, "reclamation is how I fight for us, for the center, for the people Victor hurt." Her words carried the weight of years spent advocating for her community, from organizing art classes for kids to rallying against gentrification. Nathaniel stepped closer, studying the canvas. He said, "You see strength where I see failure," his tone heavy with guilt. "I spent years ignoring what my grandfather did, those trials, those lives. I thought funding clinics could erase it, but it's not enough." "It's a start," Maya said, her voice firm. "You're not Victor. You're trying to fix what he broke, just like I'm trying to save the center. We're not so different." She paused, then asked, "Why did you give me those brushes? The pigments, your mother's journal. You could have just given me money." He looked away, his shoulders tense. "Because you reminded me of her. Clara, she painted to hold on to hope, even when Victor crushed it. I stopped painting when she left, but seeing your work, it's like remembering a part of me I buried." His admission was raw, a glimpse of the boy who'd painted to ease his mother's pain, now trapped in a man taught to see emotion as weakness. Maya's chest tightened. She knew that kind of loss. Her mother's absence still ached in every mural she painted. "You're not buried, Nathaniel," she said, stepping closer. "You chose those gifts because you see me, not just the contract. That's not a man who's lost hope." His eyes met hers, a storm of conflict within them. He said, "You don't know how hard it is to believe that. Victor taught me emotions are liabilities. Whenever I let myself feel, I'm afraid it'll destroy me or you." "Then let me help," Maya said, her voice steady. "I've spent my life turning pain into something beautiful. We can do that together, starting with Victor." Her resolve was rooted in years of fighting for Harlem, from petitioning city councils to teaching kids to paint their dreams. This was bigger, but the principle was the same: fight for what matters. Nathaniel hesitated, then nodded. Marcus has a plan. A warehouse meeting with Victor was wired for evidence. It's dangerous, Maya. I don't want you there. I'm not staying behind, she said, her tone unyielding. This isn't just your fight. Those trials hurt communities like mine, people who couldn't afford to fight back. I'm going, Nathaniel. We do this as partners. He studied her, his expression a mix of fear and admiration. You're relentless, he said, a faint smile breaking through like your paintings. He reached for her hand, his touch tentative but warm. If we do this, we stick together. No heroics. Agreed, Maya said, squeezing his hand. Maya grabbed her sketchbook as they returned to the dining room, where Marcus pored over files. While they discussed logistics, Victor's Cayman Islands deals, the bribes to Ugandan officials, she sketched her pencil tracing bold lines of resistance. The corporate intrigue was clearer now. Victor's trials had tested antivirals on vulnerable populations, falsifying data to rush drugs to market. Nathaniel's reforms, free clinics, low-cost generics, were undoing that damage, but Victor's network fought to preserve its profits. Maya and Nathaniel stood side by side. As night fell, their hands still linked. The studio's light spilled across reclamation, its vibrant hues a testament to their shared resolve. Maya's art had always been her strength, a way to transform grief into purpose. Now it was their weapon, a promise that their partnership could face even the darkest legacy. Outside, the estate's lake gleamed under the moon, and Maya felt a quiet certainty, whatever Victor threw at them, they'd paint a future worth fighting for. At 11:47 p.m., Maya adjusted the wire tape beneath her black dress, its cold weight a reminder of the danger ahead. The Meridian warehouse loomed under a storm-darkened sky, its rusted beams and broken windows like scars of a forgotten industry. Nathaniel's hand found hers in the back seat of their armored Mercedes, his grip tight with determination and dread. Marcus Reed's voice crackled through their earpieces from a surveillance van 2 blocks away. Get Victor to talk. His ego will do the rest. Stay sharp. Nathaniel nodded, his blue eyes steady, despite the tension in his jaw. Understood. Maya squeezed his hand, her resolve anchored in years of fighting for her community. She'd faced city officials and developers to save Harlem's spaces. This was a bigger fight. Her sketchbook, tucked in her bag, held a rough drawing of reclamation, its bold lines a talisman of their shared purpose. 2 men guarded the warehouse entrance, their bulk suggesting muscle over finesse. One with a faint Russian accent stepped forward. Mr. Pierce, you're expected. The woman wasn't. Nathaniel's voice was steel. My wife goes where I go. Discuss it with Victor if you have a problem. The guard hesitated, then waved them through after a brief radio exchange. Inside the warehouse was a clash of decay and opulence, cracked concrete floors under Persian rugs, a mahogany table lit by a single chandelier. Victor Pierce sat at his head, his silver hair and sharp features radiating menace. His eyes, like Nathaniel's, fixed on Maya with predatory curiosity. So this is the artist who thinks she can tame my grandson, he said, his voice smooth with old cruelty. 3 figures lingered in the shadows. Lauren Holt, in ice blue silk, and 2 men in tailored suits, their expressions cold and calculating. Maya kept her face neutral, her years of navigating tense community meetings guiding her. Mr. Pierce. A pleasure, she said coolly. Marriage is a partnership, not taming. Victor's laugh was sharp, like glass breaking a fairy tale. Nathaniel's incapable of love. I ensured that. Nathaniel's hand tightened on hers, but Maya spoke first. Your lessons didn't stick, He's more capable of tenderness than you think. Victor's eyes narrowed, a flicker of the monster who'd shaped Nathaniel's childhood. Nathaniel, control her, he snapped. She speaks for herself. Nathaniel replied, his voice steady, but laced with defiance, a concept you never grasped. Victor leaned back, his smile chilling. Let's talk choices. Yours have been disappointing. Donating profits to victim funds, pushing ethical oversight, dismantling my empire for sentimentality. Your empire was built on murder. Nathaniel said, his tone low and lethal. The Uganda trials, 200 dead from untested antivirals buried with 10 million in bribes. You called it business. Victor's mask slipped, revealing fury. I protected you. Your mother, Clara, was a liability. She planned to expose the trials to investigators to ruin us for her foolish morality. Maya's breath caught, but she stayed silent, willing Victor to keep talking. How did she threaten you? Nathaniel asked, his voice tight. Victor said she had evidence, trial data, emails, proof of the cover-ups. I couldn't allow it. A few drops in her coffee, a mountain road, and nature handled the rest. The confession was cold, clinical, confirming Clara's murder. Nathaniel's grip on Maya's hand was iron, but his face remained controlled. You faked your death, Nathaniel said. You let me grieve. Let me think I was alone to make me your puppet. Victor's smile was pure malice. Grief made you productive, acquisitions, expansions, profits beyond my dreams, until you turned soft funding clinics giving away billions. Maya saw her chance, her advocacy instincts kicking in. Those clinics save lives, she said, her voice clear. Lives like the ones you destroyed. Nathaniel's rebuilding what you broke. Victor's gaze snapped to her, but Nathaniel pulled an envelope from his jacket and slid it across the table before he could respond. 15 years of evidence, he said. Financial records, emails, footage from your Cayman compound, every bribe, every death, every lie. Victor's face paled as he rifled through the documents, his hands trembling. You're bluffing, he snarled, but his voice wavered. Page 47, Nathaniel said. The Uganda trial 2010. 63 children dead, 8 million paid to silence it. Lauren's composure cracked, her eyes darting to Victor. You can't use this, Victor said. It implicates you too. Nathaniel's voice was calm, resolute. I've given copies to federal authorities, proof of my reforms and victim compensation. I'm done being your pawn. Victor stood, fury contorting his features. You ungrateful! His words were cut off as Marcus's voice boomed through the warehouse. Hands up! Federal agents poured in, weapons drawn, DEA and FBI vests flashing. Chaos erupted, shouted commands, handcuffs clicking, Lauren's protests shrill as she was restrained. Victor was led away, his parting words venomous. This isn't over, Nathaniel. Others will come for you. Maya and Nathaniel stood alone as the warehouse cleared their hands, still linked. The weight of Victor's confession hung heavy, but so did their victory. It's over, Maya whispered. Nathaniel shook his head, his eyes scanning the shadows. This part is, but he's right. Others are out there. A figure lingered briefly in the darkness, unnoticed, before slipping away. Outside, dawn broke, painting the sky in hues of hope. Maya clutched her sketchbook, the outline of reclamation, as a reminder of their fight. Nathaniel pulled her close, his touch grounding. He said, we'll face them together, sealing the promise with a kiss. Their partnership, forged in truth, was stronger than any contract, ready to confront whatever shadows lay ahead. 6 weeks after Victor's arrest, Maya woke to a wave of nausea, the Pierce estate's main bedroom spinning as she stumbled to the bathroom. Nathaniel was at her side in an instant, his hands gentle as he held her hair, his voice a soothing murmur. "Breathe, Maya. I've got you." When the sickness passed, she leaned against him, exhausted but grateful for his steady presence. "I think I'm falling apart," she whispered, half joking. "You're not," he said, though worry shadowed his blue eyes. "But we're calling Dr. Grant. Dr. Alicia Grant." Their new physician had been vetted by Marcus Reed after their previous doctor's ties to Victor's network surfaced. Her warm demeanor had earned their trust, a rare comfort in their guarded world. 2 hours later, in a sleek medical office, Dr. Grant's face lit up with a smile. "Mrs. Pierce, you're pregnant. About 8 weeks along." The words hit like a light, illuminating a future Maya hadn't dared imagine. Nathaniel's hand found hers, his grip tight as they stared at the ultrasound monitor. A tiny heartbeat pulsed, a miracle born from their unlikely love. "Our child," Nathaniel breathed, his voice thick with awe. They left the office in a daze, their hands never parting, as their driver Jamal navigated city traffic in the armored Mercedes. Plans swirled, nursery designs, security measures, but unease crept in as they approached the estate. The gate stood unguarded, a stark anomaly. "Where's security?" Nathaniel murmured, his body tensing. Jamal, a former Marine, went rigid, his hand reaching for the weapon under his jacket. "Stay in the car," he ordered. Before he could act, the rear windows shattered, tranquilizer darts piercing the air. Jamal slumped over the wheel as masked figures in tactical gear surrounded them. Maya screamed as rough hands dragged her from the car, her vision blurring from a dart in her neck. Nathaniel's roar of her name echoed as she slipped into darkness. She woke in a decrepit warehouse, its rusted chains and stained concrete reeking of violence. Zip ties bit into her wrists, binding her to a metal chair. Across the room, Nathaniel hung from ceiling chains, his face bloodied, but his eyes blazing with fury. "Maya," he called, relief flooding his voice. "Are you hurt?" "I'm okay," she lied, her head pounding, fear for their unborn child clawing at her. A familiar voice purred from the shadows. How touching. Dr. Alicia Grant stepped into the light, her warm facade replaced by a cold, calculating gaze. The happy couple reunited. "You," Nathaniel spat, understanding dawning. "You've been Victor's all along." "With him," Alicia corrected, her smile venomous. 5 years tracking his enemies. The ultrasound gel. A person with paralysis is harmless to the baby for now. 2 figures emerged. Cassandra Pierce, Nathaniel's sister, presumed dead in a car accident a decade ago. Her features altered by surgery, but her eyes unmistakably his. And Lady Victoria Crane, a European pharma magnate, her elegance masking a ruthless edge. "Hello, brother," Cassandra said, her voice laced with resentment. "Miss me." Her motive was clear. Years of hiding, orchestrated by Victor, fueled her rage at Nathaniel's reforms. "You gave away billions, our legacy, for clinics and guilt. You weakened us." Lady Victoria stepped forward, her British accent crisp. "I represent interests harmed by your ethical crusade, Nathaniel. Blackwood Pharmaceuticals lost millions when you pushed generics. The corporate intrigue deepened Victor's network, including Blackwood profited from price gouging and illegal trials, which Nathaniel's reforms' low-cost, drugs-free clinics threatened." "What do you want?" Nathaniel asked, his voice steady, despite the blood trickling down his temple. "Sign over Pierce Enterprises," Victoria said. "Dissolve your charitable programs, return to profit-driven operations. Or," Alicia held up a syringe, its green liquid glowing faintly. "This causes miscarriage and fatal bleeding. Your wife dies in agony." Maya's stomach lurched, but her advocacy instincts kicked in. "You're monsters," she said, her voice sharp. Killing a child to protect your profits. My community has suffered enough from your kind. Her defiance, honed from years of fighting for Harlem, steadied her. Cassandra sneered. Sentimentality won't save you. 1 hour, Nathaniel. The captors retreated, leaving them alone. Nathaniel's eyes met Maya's, a mix of love and desperation. He said, I won't let them hurt you. His voice low but fierce. I know, Maya replied, her mind racing. She'd faced threats before, developers trying to bulldoze the community center, but this was personal. Jamal's loyal, she whispered. He'll have alerted Marcus. Nathaniel nodded, his fingers subtly, working at his restraints, signifying his strategic mind at work. He said, I've been planning for betrayal since I was a kid, his tone grim. Victor taught me that much. His words carried the weight of his trauma, a childhood shaped by loss and manipulation. Maya saw the boy who'd stopped painting, now fighting for their future. We're stronger than him, she said. Together. As they waited, the warehouse's silence was oppressive, but Maya's resolve burned bright, her love for Nathaniel and their child, a canvas for courage, ready to face whatever came next. The warehouse's chaos erupted as the main entrance splintered, Jamal's armored Mercedes crashing through like a battering ram. Federal agents followed, their DEA and FBI vests flashing under emergency lights, voices booming commands. Maya's wrists ached from the zip ties, but she focused on Nathaniel, who'd been working his restraints with subtle precision, a lockpick hidden in his cufflink, a trick learned from years under Victor's shadow. As gunfire echoed, he broke free, racing toward her, only to be tackled by Cassandra. The siblings fought with raw fury, years of betrayal fueling their blows. You destroyed our legacy, Cassandra screamed, her altered features contorted with rage. Nathaniel pinned her arm, preventing a shot. Our family stood for greed, he growled. I'm ending it. Across the room, Dr. Alicia Grant loomed over Maya, the syringe of green liquid raised. If I can't win, you'll lose everything, she hissed. Time slowed as Maya braced for the needle. A gunshot cracked, deafening in the enclosed space. Alicia crumpled the syringe, skittering across the concrete. Nathaniel's former therapist, Dr. Elena Brooks, stood behind her, pistol steady. Nobody hurts my patients, she said, her calm voice belying the act. She cut Maya's restraints, explaining that I've been tracking this conspiracy with Marcus for 6 months. The syringe was saline, I swapped it yesterday. Relief flooded Maya, her hand instinctively shielding her stomach. Their child was safe, but the danger wasn't over. Lady Victoria Crane emerged, a pistol in her manicured hand, her British accent sharp. Drop your weapons, or Mrs. Pierce dies. Elena hesitated, but Nathaniel caught Maya's eye, mouthing, Trust me. He lunged for the warehouse's electrical panel, ripping out cables. Darkness swallowed the room, screams and gunfire blending into chaos. This way, strong hands grabbed Maya, Marcus's voice in her ear. Guided by the glow of federal vehicles, she stumbled outside, finding Nathaniel by an ambulance, bloodied but alive. He caught her as she faltered, his arms a desperate anchor. You're safe, he whispered, his thumbs brushing tears from her cheeks. Elena told me about the syringe. Our baby's okay. It's over, Maya said, her voice trembling with relief. Nathaniel's expression darkened. Not yet. There's someone else. The shadowy figure from Victor's arrest, Richard Holt. Lauren's brother had been Victor's silent partner, funding illegal trials to bolster Holt Pharmaceuticals' profits. Marcus's intelligence had tracked him to a safe house in the city's outskirts, a final loose end in Victor's network. Maya insisted on joining the operation, her advocacy instincts unyielding. I've fought for my community against bigger odds, she told Nathaniel. This ends now. He relented, his eyes reflecting both fear and respect. At the safe house, a rundown warehouse, Maya's quick thinking shone. Using a burner phone, she hacked Richard's security system, a skill learned from tech workshops at the community center, disabling cameras and alarms. Federal agents stormed in apprehending Richard as he tried to flee with encrypted drives detailing his deals. Back at the estate, Nathaniel began therapy with Dr. Brooks, confronting the trauma of Victor's manipulation and Clara's murder. In their first session, he admitted, "I've spent my life afraid of feeling afraid. It'd make me weak." Maya sat in her presence, grounding him. She painted healing ground in her studio, blending soft blues and golds to reflect their shared recovery. Each stroke was deliberate, layering hope over pain, much like her murals that had rallied Harlem against despair. Nathaniel joined her one evening, watching her work. "You make it look possible," he said, his voice raw. "Healing, I mean." Maya set down her brush, meeting his gaze. "It's not just possible, it's happening for both of us." She thought of her mother, whose memory lived in every canvas she painted, and saw the same resilience in Nathaniel, slowly reclaiming the boy who'd painted for his mother's smile. Maya felt a quiet triumph as they stood together, the studio's light casting their shadows as one. Richard's arrest closed the immediate threat, but Nathaniel's therapy was the real victory, a step toward a future unburdened by Victor's legacy. Outside the estate's lake shimmered under dawn's first light, a canvas of possibility for the family they were building, anchored by love and the courage to face every shadow together. 7.5 months after Richard Holt's arrest, Maya stood in the main bathroom of the Pierce estate, gripping the marble counter as a contraction seized her. The mirror reflected Nathaniel's sleeping form in their bed, his face peaceful for the first time in months, softened by therapy with Dr. Brooks. Her swollen belly tightened again, the pain sharp and unrelenting. Outside, a thunderstorm raged, knocking out power across the city, the estate's windows rattling with each gust. Maya's breath hitched. These babies were coming early and weren't waiting for a hospital. She'd known surprises throughout her pregnancy: persistent nausea, Nathaniel's quiet habit of leaving herbal tea by her easel, the shock of their 20-week ultrasound. Dr. Sonia Patel, vetted with scrutiny after Alicia's betrayal, had revealed 3 heartbeats, 2 boys and a girl, all thriving. Nathaniel had fainted, his usual control undone by the news of triplets. Since then, he'd thrown himself into preparations with his characteristic precision, turning the nursery into a haven of handcrafted cribs, and Maya's painting soft murals of Harlem's vibrancy infused with hope. "Nat," she called, her voice tight as another contraction hit. He was awake instantly, his blue eyes alert as he crossed the room. "What's wrong?" "It's time," she gasped, clutching his arm. The next hour was controlled chaos. Nathaniel called Dr. Patel, his voice steady despite the panic in his eyes. Thorne coordinated with the hospital, but the storm's downed lines made communication spotty. Jamal prepared the armored Mercedes, but as they reached the foyer, Maya doubled over, the pain stealing her breath. Dr. Patel arrived, her medical bag in hand, and examined Maya swiftly. "We're not making it to the hospital," she said, her tone calm but firm, the first babies crowning. The main bedroom became an impromptu delivery room. Jamal's security team cleared space while staff gathered towels and medical supplies from the estate's first aid stations. Maya lay on the bed, Nathaniel at her side, his hand gripping hers. Dr. Patel's voice was steady. "Triplet deliveries are tricky even with equipment. Here we need precision." Maya nodded, drawing on the resilience that had carried her through Harlem's battles, gentrification fights, community rallies. This was another fight for her children. The first boy arrived with a fierce cry, his tiny body slipping into Nathaniel's trembling hands. "He's perfect," Nathaniel whispered, tears tracing his cheeks as he cradled their son, his dark hair a mirror of his father's. Maya smiled through her exhaustion, her love for this moment grounding her. But there was no pause. The second baby, their daughter, was breach, her position dangerous. Dr. Patel worked with quiet intensity, sweat beading on her brow. Push when I say, Maya. Stop when I tell you. I can't. Maya gasped after hours of labor, her strength waning. Nathaniel settled beside her, their firstborn in one arm, his voice firm. You can. You've faced worse. Victor, Cassandra, all of it. You're stronger than anyone I know. His words echoed her resolve, forged in years of painting through grief, fighting for her community. She thought of her mother, whose memory lived in every canvas, and pushed. Their daughter emerged with an indignant wail, her delicate features scrunched in protest. 2 down, Dr. Patel said, relief in her voice. 1 to go. The third baby, another boy, was in distress with the umbilical cord around his neck. Dr. Patel's hands moved with surgical precision, her instructions sharp. Push now, Maya. Stop on my mark. Nathaniel's grip tightened, his eyes locked on hers, a silent anchor. Thunder shook the estate, mirroring the tension. Maya bore down her body, screaming until a sudden release. Silence followed, terrifyingly still. Dr. Patel suctioned the baby's airway, her movement swift. After an agonizing moment, a cough broke through, then a wail, strong, defiant. He's fine, Dr. Patel said, wrapping him in a towel. Just needed a nudge to breathe. Nathaniel took their youngest, his arms full, with all 3 babies, his face mixed with joy and disbelief. Maya reached out her fingers, brushing tiny hands overwhelmed by love. What do we name them? She asked, her voice soft with exhaustion. They'd debated names for months, never settling. Now, staring at their children, inspiration struck. Hope, she said, touching their daughter's cheek. For the storms we've weathered, fierce and unstoppable. Nathaniel nodded. Hope Pierce. Perfect. Maya continued, saying that the first boy was Faith. He came so easily, like he knew we needed him. Nathaniel's eyes glistened. Faith Pierce. And the youngest, Zion, Maya said. He fought to be here, like you fought to be more than Victor's shadow. Nathaniel repeated, Zion Pierce, his voice thick, our children. Dr. Patel confirmed the baby's health, praising Maya's strength. As the storm eased, dawn painted the sky in gold. Nathaniel sat beside Maya, singing a soft lullaby, Clara's perhaps, from a time before pain stole his voice. Maya watched, her heart full. Their family, born from a contract, was bound by love, a testament to their resilience. Outside, the world felt new, washed clean, ready for the life they'd build together. 3 months after the triplets' birth, Maya stood in the Pierce Estate's studio, her brush sweeping bold strokes across a canvas. Justice Rising was her most ambitious work yet, a vibrant mural blending Harlem's resilience with the hope embodied by her children, Faith, Hope, and Zion. She layered crimson and gold over a base of somber grays, each stroke a testament to the fight she and Nathaniel had waged against Victor's legacy. Her art, born from years of painting through grief, now carried a new purpose: to amplify their stand against the pharmaceutical empire's crimes. Nathaniel entered his suit crisp, but his posture softened, a change Maya attributed to his ongoing therapy with Dr. Brooks. His blue eyes, once guarded, held a quiet pride as he watched her paint. It's stunning, he said, his voice warm. Congress will see more than my words tomorrow. He was set to testify before a congressional committee exposing Victor's illegal trials and his efforts to reform Pierce Enterprises. Maya's painting would be displayed at the hearing, a visual anchor for their truth. You're ready, Maya said, setting down her brush. Her advocacy for Harlem's community center had taught her the power of public stands, and she saw the same resolve in Nathaniel. This isn't just about Victor, it's about every life he hurt. She thought of her mother, lost to a system prioritizing profit, and the Ugandan families devastated by Victor's greed. The next day, in a Washington hearing room, Nathaniel faced a panel of senators, their faces stern under fluorescent lights. Maya sat in the gallery, justice rising projected on a screen behind him, its vibrant hues starkly contrasting the room's austerity. Nathaniel's voice was steady as he began. For decades, Pierce Enterprises profited from illegal trials. In 2010, untested antivirals were administered in Uganda, causing 200 deaths, including 63 children. My grandfather, Victor Pierce, buried the evidence with 10 million bribes to officials and media. Gasps rippled through the room. Maya gripped her seat, her heart swelling with pride. Nathaniel detailed the trial's specifics. The antivirals rushed to market without proper testing, caused organ failure in vulnerable communities. He presented documents, emails, financial records, clinical data gathered over the years exposing Victor's network, including Blackwood Pharmaceuticals and Holt Enterprises. I was complicit by ignorance, he admitted, his voice raw. At 23, I inherited a corrupt empire. I looked away, but I've worked to atone for 15 years, funding free clinics, low-cost generics, and victim compensation. A senator leaned forward skeptical. Why come forward now? Mr. Pierce Nathaniel's gaze flickered to Maya, then to Justice Rising. Because truth matters more than profit. My wife's art shows what I couldn't say. Healing starts with accountability. The painting's vivid colors, gold for hope, crimson for sacrifice, seemed to pulse, drawing murmurs from the crowd. Maya's chest tightened. Rooted in Harlem's fight, her work became a beacon for justice. Questions followed, sharp and probing. Nathaniel answered with unflinching honesty, his therapy-honed vulnerability grounding his testimony. Maya's role wasn't just symbolic. She'd helped compile evidence using skills from community organizing to cross-reference financial trails with Marcus Reed. Her contribution ensured the case was airtight, implicating Victor Cassandra and Richard Holt without ambiguity. As the hearing ended, a senator commended Nathaniel's courage, and the room erupted in applause. Maya joined him outside, where reporters swarmed. Mrs. Pierce, one called, "Your painting stole the show." Their fight wasn't over. Lawsuits and scrutiny loomed, but their partnership was unbreakable, a canvas painted with truth and love. Outside the estate's lake reflected a clear sky, a mirror of the future they were building, one where justice, not greed, defined their legacy. In the soft glow of the Pierce estate's nursery, Maya stood over the cribs of Faith, Hope, and Zion, their tiny chests rising with steady breaths. The room was a haven of her creation, walls adorned with murals of Harlem's vibrant stoops and laughing children woven with golden threads of hope inspired by her triplets. Each painting was a testament to her journey from grief over her mother's loss to the fierce love that now defined her life. Nathaniel joined her, his presence quiet but grounding, his hand resting on her shoulder as they watched their children sleep. 6 months had passed since Nathaniel's congressional testimony, a reckoning dismantling Victor's corrupt network. Pierce Enterprises was transforming, and its profits now fund global health equity clinics in Uganda and generics for underserved communities. Maya's painting, Justice Rising, had become a symbol of their fight, reproduced in media coverage and displayed at the new Harlem Community Health Center they were building together. Her art, once a personal refuge, was now a public call for change, rooted in her years of advocacy. Nathaniel's therapy with Dr. Brooks had continued, peeling back layers of trauma from Victor's manipulation and Clara's murder. He'd started painting again, tentative at first, in a corner of Maya's studio. His latest work, a small canvas for the nursery, depicted 3 stars over a serene lake. Faith, Hope, and Zion shining against a stormy sky. He'd said, "I haven't painted since I was a kid." his voice soft with wonder. "It feels like coming home." Maya saw the boy who'd painted to ease his mother's pain, now finding healing through their family. This center, Maya said, her eyes on the cribs, is what Mom would have wanted. A place for kids to dream, to heal, like I did with art. She'd spent months designing the health center, blending medical services with art programs, a space where Harlem's youth could find hope as she had. Nathaniel's resources made it possible, but her vision drove it. Her sketches of vibrant murals lined the construction plans. Nathaniel's hand tightened on her shoulder, his blue eyes reflecting the nursery's soft light. "You've given me more than a family, Maya. You've given me a purpose beyond profit." His words carried the weight of his therapy each session, a step toward embracing vulnerability. "I was taught love was a weakness, but you've shown me it's a strength." She leaned into him, her heart full. "We've shown each other." This, she gestured to the triplets. "The murals, their shared quiet, is what we fought for." Their journey from a desperate contract to a love that faced betrayal and danger had forged a bond unbreakable by Victor's shadows. Maya thought of her mother, whose memory lived in every canvas, and Clara, whose journal had sparked their connection. Their pain had shaped them, but their love had transformed them. They moved to the studio, where Justice Rising hung beside Nathaniel's starlit canvas. Maya picked up a brush, adding a final stroke to a new painting, a family of 5 silhouetted against a dawn sky, Harlem's vibrancy in the background. Her process, layering hope over pain, mirrored their life. Every challenge, from Victor's crimes to the kidnapping, had built this moment. Nathaniel watched his brush in hand, painting a companion piece, a lake reflecting their children's light. Nathaniel said, "We're opening the center next month," his voice steady but warm. "I've redirected another 10 million from the Uganda trial profits to fund it." The corporate reckoning continued, with lawsuits pending against Blackwood and Holt Pharmaceuticals. But Nathaniel's reforms were unshakable, guided by Maya's vision of equity. Her advocacy, honed in Harlem's streets, had shaped their mission, ensuring the center would serve those Victor's greed had harmed. As they painted side by side, the studio filled with the quiet rhythm of their brushes. Maya's strokes were bold, Nathaniel's tentative but growing confident, a shared creation that felt like their marriage, once a contract, now a partnership of heart and purpose. Outside, the estate's lake shimmered under a clear dawn, its surface mirroring their future. Faith, hope, and Zion's heartbeats pulsed in the nursery, a steady reminder of the family they'd built from unlikely beginnings. Maya set down her brush, her hand finding Nathaniel's. "We did this," she said, her voice soft but certain. "Not just the center, the kids, us." Nathaniel's smile was unguarded, a rarity that warmed her soul. "We did. And we'll keep doing it together." He kissed her forehead, a promise sealed in the morning light. Their love, forged through storms, was a canvas of hope, ready to paint a world where justice and family thrived.